Have you ever wondered about what happens in a martial arts studio? Well, you start right away by setting goals, building determination, gaining focus, building skills, all while becoming more fit, gaining confidence, and learning self-defense. Huiton Academy is a school where attitude meets aptitude. So give us a call at 956-401-4868. Back at you and gloves off, and today we have a great episode. That episode is with the hiring of an interim police chief and trying to clean up what issues the Laredo Police Department have. And let me tell you this, not because I'm going to introduce him in a bit, but I've known the chief for a very long time, and we want to clean up something, he's the only person that can do it. There'll be others that will come inside, and it's not going to happen. So it's, what do we want? Do we want to continue with the same format we have, or do we really want to clean up what we have? And we'll talk about all those issues, but good morning. Good morning. And congratulations for being there, and congratulations for sticking up. I'm going to tell you one thing. First, I mean, you became a fire chief, and now police chief. So that means it's a first in Laredo. It never happens. So it's a first in Laredo, so congratulations on that. It's a reason why. And, we can talk about everything. Well, how do you feel? How's everything?
Well, it's a great honor. It really is, Paul, to be fire chief of a great organization. I served the city as a firefighter for 30 years and 6 weeks. And now coming back for round 2. As an assistant city manager, and then being placed in the position of acting police chief. It's a great honor. It's for the city manager to entrust me with this role, and I look forward to continuing to serve the public and to the best of my capabilities. And yeah, you put that to me. I don't think it's ever happened in the history that the same person where the fire chief hat and the police chief hat within a lifetime. It's a first hit in history, and it's such a great honor to do that. And it's not about me; it's about teamwork.
That's correct. You did an excellent job at the fire department, and the fire department became, not because you're here. I'm telling you straight. You and I know each other since we were kids, and the fire department folks. Our first responders are A1, they're the best. And they're there, they give themselves to you, and the police as well. And but we'll talk about the police because there's certain things that happen. And I don't want any of y'all to get upset with feelings, because we're talking about issues that need to be clarified. And it's not about, we don't dislike the police. In fact, we like the police. In fact, there's certainly issues there. And or else you wouldn't be there. And you understand what I'm saying? So what happens is, let's just talk about why everything led to you being placed in.
Well, I received a phone call, Tuesday morning, asking me to come in to see the city manager. I was on my way to the office at 7:30 a.m., the police chief and his attorney met with the city manager on that Tuesday, right after the holiday recently. And I was told that the city manager needed to see me. And so I was real close. I was on my way to work, and I said, I'm almost, I'm headed there. And so once I got there, I was told, have a seat. So the city manager tells me it was his first day on the job. The city manager's first day on the job, and he said, have a seat, Steve, I need to talk to you. I said, yes, sir. And he goes, well, first of all, I want to let you know that the police chief and his attorney came to see me at 7:30 this morning, and the police chief has submitted his intent to retire at the end of April. I said, I kind of heard some rumblings about it over the weekend, and I said, well, I appreciate the service that he provided to the city, to the police department. And he said, well, now we need to talk about who's going to be there next as in the interim, the acting position, and I want to send you there, he said. And I said, whoa. Said that caught me off guard. Basically, I just said, sir, it's obvious you know my history, you know my background. I know you're new here, sir. Today's your first day, and I want to wish you well. I said, and I want you to succeed. I really do, and I'm here to serve you and serve the citizens of Laredo, and I'll take on that challenge of acting police chief, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that you succeed as a city manager. And then I just said, I thanked him for the trust that he's given me, and I assured him that I would do my best as an acting police chief. But then I asked him a very important question to me. What about my position here at City Hall as an assistant city manager? I said, is that going to change? He goes, no, you're one of my assistants. Your position will be waiting for you when you come back. And so ultimately right now I am an assistant city manager, and I do also hold the acting police chief position as well. So I have a few departments that are under me, the health department, the library, animal control, and the new detox center that we're opening up. And of course, as a director, now I also have the police department. And so it's a big honor to serve those roles, fire chief, assistant city manager, and police chief, but I'm going to try my best. I don't want to stretch myself out too thin, Paul, because I have a family, and I also have my ministry, serving as a Catholic deacon for the Diocese of Laredo here at St. Patrick Church, so I have to balance it very nicely,
Yeah, absolutely, and it's sad because you were put in a good position because something occurred. What gets me is, why would he be there with his attorney?
I don't know. I wasn't part of that meeting. That meeting happened before I was called in.
I mean, if you're going to resign, you just resign. You don't take your attorney with you.
You would when I retired, I didn't bring an attorney with me to make my decision to retire from being fire chief. Ultimately, maybe he wanted to negotiate some terms, of his exit, his strategy, his plan, but I wasn't privy to that.
Understood. And it just, let me put it to you this way. There's been a lot of rumblings. Not rumblings, there was a court hearing that found peace officers from the Laredo Police Department involved in voter fraud and involved in all that. And it's kind of like, it's another hit on the police.
Yes.
And that's going to be there. And then there's a lot of other issues that have come of age, videos that have popped up and stuff like that people love the police, want to help the police, but they're losing faith in the police because of such stuff that's in there. And how can we gain that back? And how can we gain that back? And how can we make assurance that might not happen again, or if that does happen, for us to lower its standards? Because we can go back since we were kids, and there's always been an issue with Laredo Police Department. There's always been some type of infractions that they do. There's always been something that they're tied into, whether, how can I say, not corruption, but illegal acts. And when we were kids, some of the police would stop you and threaten you and pull out a little bag and do this and threaten you that they were gonna arrest you. And I said, well, go ahead. Everybody knows that I don't do drugs, but do whatever you want. So that, to me, I said it kind of stopped. Little by little, it was weeded off. But we've gotten more and more into, 2 mayors ago we had issues with a corrupt police chief and a corrupt police department. How can we clean that up?
At the end of the day, we need to focus on the most important thing. These people are individuals, and they make decisions for themselves, and they find themselves in trouble. what I would tell all my firefighters, and I've been telling my police officers, is that whenever you do something, always remember that you represent an agency. It's no longer Steve Landin, the citizen of Laredo. It's Steve Landin, the fire chief. Steve Landin, the police chief.
Absolutely.
The organization that you're in is tied into you because you joined it. So I asked them, all of the officers, in 3 days, the first 3 days I was assigned to, of the first week I was there, I visited all the divisions of the organization. I went to all 3 platoons on the patrol. I came in at 6 a.m., had the next briefing at 3 in the afternoon, came back at 9 p.m., talked to all the patrol officers, because I wanted them to know that our integrity has been put in question, and we need to grow that integrity back. And the actions of a few officers tarnish the whole organization.
Absolutely.
And I told them, don't become a file on my desk. I don't come into work with any negative intentions to do harm to any of my employees. I want my employees to do the best they can every time they come to work. But if there is a file on my desk, if they make it there, I'm going to treat them with dignity and respect, but I'm going to be strict and firm, and I'm going to deal with the issue. And if you're fair with each one of them, then they understand I'm not going to tolerate any shenanigans. I'm going to treat them and hold them to the high standard, just like the community holds me.
Absolutely. And, and you see that. Maybe now you start seeing more of that come out with video. And I study violence. I teach people how to control violence. I teach people how to assume that violence. I'm with Jordan Peterson. If a man does not know violence, he cannot be peaceful. He's just a weak individual. He's just like a rabbit.
Yeah.
Prey. So you have to understand violence. You have to live through violence for you to be able to control and go into peaceful acts.
Yes.
Because if you do not know it, then you're just weak.
Yeah.
And some of you might agree, some of you might not. But the problem is, through experience, we've gotten to this point. I'm glad that there's a lot of these citizen journalists that are running around, and they're taping that because that kind of puts a safety measure. Not everybody is there. We do have. Don't get me wrong if I use certain terms, but we do have some great peace officers. But then we have some that not. So I usually tell my students and tell everybody around, my kids and everybody else, if you get stopped, if you call in front from somebody, be cordial, be nice, comply. They tell you stop. If they tell you want to see identification, here's identification. Don't start arguing, because you do not know who that person is. You do not know what he's going through. Maybe it's a bad day and he's going to take it out on you. And that's where it starts. We have to teach the compliance, and you comply and everything else. And if they go past you and they harm you, then there's a process. And I think that process needs to change. And that's just an opinion. And here's an opinion of what I've seen, okay? Because I have a lot of family that are police officers, and I have brothers in the lodge that are police officers. I have students that have become police officers. And, they come back and they talk to you about issues and you see what's going on, and you have a very few bad apples. I would say 15-20% bad apples. But then you have about 30% very good apples, and the rest are just compliant. They're just like complacent. I don't want to see it, I don't want to do anything about it, I'm just doing my job. You guys have to say, I'm going to be the good and stand up. So we have to protect our good police officers. We have to protect that police officer that said, hey, you know what? So-and-so did wrong. So-and-so se pasó. Instead of being afraid to voice that concern.
Yeah, because I understand what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because that's what's happening, Chief. And I think if we get more protection for the good, we can weed out the bad.
Well, one of the first things I did on day one is get together with the Internal Affairs Office of the police department. Internal Affairs is a department that investigates different crime and even crime related to police officers within the organization. And so I met with them. I met with the sergeant, the lieutenant of Internal Affairs, and I asked about open cases. I asked about recently closed cases. And I'm telling you that they are nothing more than fair. I would say that the amount of professionalism that I have seen from them is off the charts. That the sergeant, the lieutenant in charge of the internal affairs, they're very thorough. And so ultimately, I told all the police officers that I was not the type of chief that would be afraid of looking back into the history of the organization and look at the decisions that were made and what happened within those decisions. Now, I'm probably only going to be there for 6 months. And so, obviously, it's a department that I'm holding together with the team that I have until the new leader comes in and creates their own vision of the department. And when that new leader comes in, that new leader needs to shape that vision, gather and create his or her team of leaders that are going to help move that department in the direction and vision of the new leader that aligns with the policies and the direction of the mayor, the council, and management. And so it's an excellent organization. I've enjoyed my chief officers, my captains, my administrative team, excellent. The officers out there, excellent. Certain ones have tripped and fall, and they've made poor choices. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to treat them with dignity and respect. And if there's stuff that was covered up, that was done inappropriately, and I'm able to see it, I'm going to do what I can to correct it. There's all kinds of allegations of some types of corruption and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, those are just chatter from out there in the public. I got to see the facts.
Absolutely. And I talk from experience, from stuff that's happened to us, and you were there one time on a Friday. It was several years ago. We were on the phone, and something had happened to me by a police officer, and I was on a 2503 case, which is interference with child custody. Remember?
Yes, you spoke to me about that. Yes.
And it's something that's dear to my heart because we're always told deadbeat dads, by everywhere, from law enforcement, all that. Oh, the deadbeat dad, they're going to forget your mom. But it takes two parents to raise a child. Okay, we got divorced, fine. But that doesn't mean you're not the father of that child. Doesn't mean you can't care for that child. It doesn't mean you can't rear them and all that other stuff, right? So that was that happened, and this is my experience, and it was there. The argument started, very well, and he took 2 steps back, and he went for his gun, and I called the police, and I said that we needed more help, and he left. Later on, the sergeant comes in, and I told him that I was going to record everything, and you've heard it, you've seen it, you've heard it. I don't want that to happen to anybody else.
Well, I'll tell you,
what I'm saying?
yeah, I understand.
Because somebody else might not be able to control the situation, and all of a sudden you have a dead father.
Yeah. What I will say is that there is a policy of the organization, and we have body-worn cameras for the protection of the officer as much as for the protection of the people that we serve. So whenever an incident does occur, we are able to visualize the incident from the camera of the unit as it's en route to the call, once it gets on scene, and then the camera of the officer, on the officer. That'll give us a good picture of the whole incident so that we can look at the actions of the officer and we can look at the actions of the public. Because nobody wants, when law enforcement gets to an incident, emotions are high. People are experiencing a difficult day in their life.
Absolutely.
And so what I encourage the officers is to take a step back and practice your verbal judo.
No, of course.
And then try to de-escalate that call to prevent it from getting out of hand.
And that incident there that occurred, that I went through, has produced a resolution by the city, which they did an excellent job.
Yes, I
To remember for us to put a infraction on the custodial parent that doesn't want to give up the child.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a mother or father, and you get an infraction. That bill passed the House, didn't go through the Senate last time, but not done. This time around, I think a lot of people are going to pass it forward. Now then, after that, we have to go back in the city council if they want to accept the ordinance or not. But
well, we're
going to have to do something. I think that would be the best bet to shut that off. And I think
when a state law passes, Texas peace officers must abide by that state law. If what happens is that the report is done by the Laredo police officer on the scene of the incident, and then it gets passed over to the district attorney, he or his office will determine if they will proceed with the case. So if the state law gives us a law that when we get to that house, if we find probable cause to say, yes, this is a violation of those custodial rights, and we submit that report to the DA, then the DA will make a choice to say, yes, I'm going to proceed with this case, or I'm going to bring in the person and counsel them.
absolutely. And nobody wants anybody to go to jail. Please believe me that. Please understand that. But the actual code is a state jail. It's supposed to pick them up, and it's not supposed to. Let's call it DA, and that's where we've gone wrong. But but what I'm saying is, we in life we have to look at their history, and if we made mistakes in our history, we have to fix them to better. And I think right now you are at that fork that you're looking back at everything that's going on, and now let's choose the better road.
Correct.
And I think it takes a man of your caliber to do that. I'm not here going after you, and I'm not attacking you in whichever form. And I think that's the best thing that we need to thing that has happened to Laredo in a very long time.
Thank you for the confidence in that. I'm going to use the skills that I have to manage the organization, to bring the group together so that the people will see the good of the organization. It's a great organization. Again, a few people recently have gotten in trouble, and we lost a life. The president of the association, and then the police chief retires, and then there's other
infractions with the voter fraud and all of that.
And so those people will get their day in court, and those people will get their day in court as anybody else.
Absolutely. Listen, yeah, you're correct, Chief. And listen, and everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Correct. And
we can't. Who are we to judge? We can only talk about experiences that we've had, or things that we've seen, and things that we can give an opinion about.
Yes.
And and that's the only thing we can talk about. We can't say, no. We can't take anybody to the stake and light the match. Okay, we have to start. That's why we have laws, and everybody's presumed innocent until it's proven guilty. But certain issues occur, and we need to protect them. And to me, Chief, I think we all have to sit down and and with some police officers of different agencies, and come up with some type of law that protects the good peace officer. If a good peace officer sees something, and it's not a Whistleblowers Act, sees something, we protect them.
From retaliation.
From retaliation, because what happens is a lot of them are afraid of, it's a good old boy system, and something happens wrong to them. You never know, and unfortunately, too many bad experiences in the past have scared a lot of people now in the future.
What I'll say is this. I told them, let's look forward and let's keep moving the department forward together as one unit.
Absolutely.
And whatever happened in the past is in the past. However, we'll deal with them administratively, or if there's anything criminal. One officer asked me in particular, he raised his hand at one of the briefings and said, "You mentioned you were willing to look at things that happened in the past. What are you going to look at?" And I basically just told the officer, I said, "I understand civil service law very clearly. I know that people got suspended and people have, they've been disciplined for their behavior. I understand that they have an obligation or they have had a right to appeal until a final conclusion of their case." I said, "So if their civil service cases have been resolved and concluded, then that's what they'll be. But if there's criminal implication associated with that was overlooked, that's where I step in and say, no, that's not going to end there. And so we may have to take different action on different things. But at the end of the day, my goal is to bring the department together so that we walk forward into the future and hand this department over to the person that will take it over. And whoever that person is, as that person steps in, I'll start transitioning out back to my office."
Absolutely. And I'm going to go back into those citizen journalists there. We have a lot of them. They've got a lot of stuff on tape that's ugly. Some of the stuff we talked about. But we also have to do something to those journalists, because they might say, "You're a podcaster, you're a citizen journalist." And we have to do something for them to be identified. Whether they have a vest, that if they go to a scene, they can wear that vest and be out there. Don't interfere with it, because that's in police interference with the scene of a crime or an accident or what have you. But for you to be able to film by a distance, we need to do something like that.
That's an interesting idea, and I think identification is key. Everybody nowadays has a phone.
Yeah, that's
and
a problem.
So they use that phone. There's people out there in the public. They just film it because they're witnesses to the incident. And let me tell you how important those videos are. They're very important, because we have individuals in the police department that specialize in recovering footage that could be later used to help us identify the suspects in that incident.
Absolutely.
And we could track things and find justice for the victims, with those phones. So yeah, those phones are important out there. I mean, they help us also police ourselves and how we reacted to that incident, so we could learn from it to be better, but at the same time, they're a good benefit to the victims.
Absolutely. And we need that, but we need to do, especially those that company have to have some type of identification. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Maybe it's a city ordinance, or maybe, I don't know.
I think I'll talk to our legal department about
See what needs to be happen. Maybe they have to get a vest that says whatever, or a yellow vest, or what have you. You know what I mean?
Yes, but we can't forget the profession. When you're talking about KGNS, you're talking about Fox, you're talking about Laredo Morning Times, all these individuals that go to school to be professional journalists that have studied, they have ethics rules, they have all kinds of stuff that make them into that profession of journalism, and so they're held to a high standard. So anybody else that does that outside of that, I'm not sure that they fit in the same category. However, I think that's a legal question maybe to see what category those others belong in. But I'm of the opinion that we respect them all and we treat them all the same because they're all people. They're people first.
If you go anywhere and you have a camera and all of a sudden you start being very belligerent or very insulted, that's a different story.
Yes.
If you're asking questions like, "Hey, what happened here?" That's a different story.
Right.
So we have to take things into account, and that person might be placed on film. Okay, this happened here. You post it on there. Hey, you know what? You use this. Understand?
I think at the end of the day, in my experiences through my career as a firefighter and assistant city manager and now as police chief, all of the people out there that I've encountered from the media, both the actual journalists that studied to be journalists, and even the other people that I've encountered and had discussions with, interviews with. They've always treated me and my officers, police
respect.
officers, firefighters with respect.
Absolutely.
And that's it. I've seen other instances where there's been some disrespect, and those are moments that we have to take a step back and say, no, that can't happen this
Yeah,
way.
you take a tactical retreat and analyze the situation. That's it. And I understand that. What's your next what's right now the plan for the police department right now? What's your next step? Saying, okay, we got this. What are you doing next?
We're looking at getting the department accredited. An accredited department. There's a bunch of over 100 departments in the state of Texas that are accredited. It's a police accreditation that we have to meet high standards to get there. That hasn't happened. We haven't done the accreditation. I've been talking to staff to get us to that level, the highest level of standards in the organization, so the public can say, my police department is accredited.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking at that with the staff. We're looking at the organizational structure and the reporting process. I'm talking to the IA to see if there's little adjustments I need to make there in the interim. Because remember, I'm just holding the ship steady per se, and then we'll see what comes from that. But at the end of the day, we continue to provide good service for the public. And if there's somebody that needs to reach out and talk to me, I have an open door policy for the public and for my police officers. And at the end of the day, we're just here to serve.
Absolutely. And folks, don't get us wrong. It was just a nice little sit down about some concerns that are out there, some concerns that have been prevailing. Stuff that probably from 2020 this way just came out. Nobody has ever. It's just been manifested. Nobody's ever talked about it. And if you all have any questions, vice versa, email. My email's WeThrownAcademy at 2012. WeThrownAcademy2012 at gmail.com. At any time, and if you need to get a hold of the chief, we can do that as well. Any questions on any issues in the community, please bring them forward, because sometimes people are afraid to talk. People are afraid to allow their voices to be heard, and we can help you out. If you guys need to sit down or go whichever way, I'm not an attorney, whatever way, but we can help you, or ease that venue, that road, And for you guys out there, especially the police out there, do the best. Do what you want to be remembered by. Here's something. Do something that, if you're 30 years old and you're a young police officer that's in there, do something that the 50-year-old is going to say, man, when I was 30, 32 years old, this is what I did, this is what I accomplished. Be proud of that. Be your own hero. Understand? And that's the way it is. Is the 50-year-old you going to look back at the 30 and say, geez, I screwed up, I shouldn't have done that? Or he's going to say, you know what, I did great, look at where I'm at now. I'm now leading the police department. Because you never know. Understand? And if you guys ever need help, believe me, there's a lot of wrongs out there. And 2 wrongs don't make a right. So we have to learn by those wrongs and sit down and talk about them. And talk about them in a good format with a lot of people. And start changing those things in any department. I'm just not talking about the police department, just what the chief said.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, and let's continue doing good.
Yes, we'll try our best.
And I think you should be there for a little bit more than 6 months. But as who am I to say? And I think the new city manager did a good selection in placing you there. Some other people might say whatever they want, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why.
I'm a man of faith. Whatever the Lord, wherever He takes me, is where I'll end up.
Absolutely. And, we've always protected the blue, and we've always supported the blue. I'm just not going to support the bullies in blue. I'm going to support the blue all the time, and the chief's back here. Sometime next month, I'll call the chief. And for all the patrol units out there, we're going to have another, like we used to have before, We used to do a lunch for all the badgers that are out there. You guys don't have to go spend something. Come over, have a hamburger on us, and take it that way. But I'll give you guys a date. I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Have a good one. God
Be
bless
safe.
you.
You guys stay safe, be safe, and God bless you.